Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, 1 Kings chapter 7. If you'd like me to come speak at your church or if you have any questions, you can email me at godsohman@gmail.com. So there's a lot of different programs. This one's called Ask an Atheist. And almost all of them will say there's a lot of Bible contradictions out there. There's mistakes in the Bible. There's historical mistakes, scientific mistakes, and there's even some moral mistakes. If you look at 1 Corinthians 4, this is therefore, judge nothing before the time, until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness, and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts, and then shall every man have praise of God. Matthew 11 and Luke 10:11 says, And at that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid the things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them to babes. Even so, Father, for it seemed good in thy sight. So it's saying that if you think that you're like this wise, intelligent person, you're going to read the Bible, you're going to find all these errors. But if you actually sit and think about it and listen, it's simple stuff. Even babies understand it. Proverbs 30 says, Every word of God is pure. He is a shield unto them that put their trust in him. And thou not put unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou shalt be called a liar. John 12 says, He that rejecteth me and received not my words has the one that judged him. The words that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last days. So you got these people saying that there's all these problems with the Bible because they think that they're so smart they don't actually understand what the Bible says. But if you actually stop, slow down, and read what it says, you'll find out there's really not any kind of there's no mistakes at all in the Bible. So 1 Kings 7. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. And he built also the house of the forest of the Lebanon. The length therefore was 100 cubits, and the breadth therefore was 50 cubits, and the height thereof was 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams upon the pillars. And every time I do one of these, people say, what's a cubit? Well, a cubit is using a measurement from the elbow to the tip of your middle finger. And since many different people have different size lengths, they actually modernized it to say that that's about 18 inches. So Solomon was making this beautiful temple to the Lord. He was just making it as beautiful as you could possibly imagine. And it was covered with cedar upon all the beams, and laid up 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against the light of 3 ranks. So he just made this place to be just absolutely beautiful, with beautiful walls, beautiful pillars. And all the doors and posts were square, and the windows and lights were against the light of the 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length therefore was 50 cubits, and the breadth therefore was 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars, and the thick beam was before them. So you could think of these pillars cover the front of this little temple. And you can see right here, Solomon's porch, this little front area, this gate you get to walk through. This is what we're talking about, the porch of pillars. John 10, it says, And he was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked into the temple in Solomon's porch. And there came the Jews round about him, and said unto him, How long dost thou make thy doubt? Be thou Christ, tell us plainly. So Jesus actually walked through Solomon's porch. We go to Acts 3. So there's a lame man which was healed, held Peter and John. All the people ran together unto them, that a porch that is called Solomon's greatly wondered. So Peter and John also was at Solomon's porch. Acts 5. And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people. They were all in one accord at Solomon's porch. So many of the disciples also went to Solomon's porch. Back to 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 7. Then he made a porch of the throne where he might judge, even the port of judgment. And it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within a porch, which was their like work. Solomon also made a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife like unto this porch. And there were costly stones according to the measure of hewed stones. Saul was Saul's, with and without, even with the foundation of the coping, and so the outside towards the great court. And the foundation was a costly stone, and of great stone, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones, after the measure of the huge stones of the cedars. And the great court round about was within 3 rows of huge stones, and a row of cedar beams, both of the inner court of the house of the Lord, and for the porch of the house. And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. He was a widow's son, the son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was the man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cutting to work all works of brass. And he came to King Solomon and wrought all of his work. I really like people who take pride in their work. Ecclesiastes 9 says, "Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom of the grave without there goeth." You do a great job, it shows. People see your work and they say, "Hey, that's a great job. I really appreciate how that looks." You know, you got to make sure your boards are straight, your boards look nice. You make little things here, and everything about it really looks nice. And also, some people do not take pride in their work. And I've got a bunch of examples of people that do not take pride in their work. This guy right here does not take pride in his work. You can see how this looks right here. This guy right here does not take pride in his work. The Not My Job award winner goes to, they just put paint right on top of the possum. They did blacktop right on top of the shovel. They could turn this sewer grate around a little bit so it looks a little more professional. This guy blacktop right around a car. You can see how these bricks don't even match up. The horse apparently went to the bathroom and they just put paint right on top of it. This guy painted the curb. The bike was in the way and they just painted right on top of it. They paid me to build pipes, not to move rocks. They blacktop right on top of the sewer grate. They took their paint and they went right on top of the car. They could very easily fix this little cobblestone here so that the bike is being able to be seen. The squirrel died, they painted right on top of it. They made this fence and didn't even move the rock. The stop sign is upside down. They didn't even spell stop properly. They just put piping right around this clock instead of moving the clock. This guy right here is getting attacked by this boa, and there's a picture of a guy over there videotaping it, and he's not helping him. They forgot to take the salt and pepper out of the container. They put this bench right where all the water leaks out on. Put paint right on top of this raccoon. 1 Kings 7:15. For he cast 2 pillars of brass of 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. And he made 2 chapters of molten brass and set upon the tops of the pillars. The heights of one chapter, and you have 5 cubits, and the heights of the other chapter was 5 cubits. So you can see here right in the front, these 2 brass pillars in front of the temple. These 2 brass pillars, one was called Jachin and one was called Boaz, which we'll find here in a second. These giant pillars that the same height as doorway, if not bigger, he put in front of the temple. And nets of checker wood and rafts of chain work and chapters were upon the tops of the pillars, 7 for one chapter and 7 for the other chapter. They made the pillars of 2 rows round about one network to cover the chapters that were upon the top with pomegranates, and so did he for the other chapter. And the chapters that were upon the top of the pillars were of the lily work of the porch of 4 cubits. And the chapters upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly which was of the network. And the pomegranates were 200 in rows round about the top of the chapter. And they set up the pillars of the porch of the temple, and set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin, and set up the left pillar, and called their name Boaz. And upon the top of the pillars was lily work, and it was the work of the pillars finished. So the top of the pillar had this like lily work and pomegranate. It was really cool the way it looked. And he made molten sea 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all around, and the height was 5 cubits. And a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim at round about there were knobs compassing it 10 cubits, compassing the sea round about. The knobs were cast in 2 rows, and then there was a cast. So, I actually have gotten both of these Bible contradictions multiple times. And this question I've been asked about, does the Bible have a mathematical mistake about pi? So if you read in 2 Chronicles, it says, he, Solomon, made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits in height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass round about it. So if you take the measurements of the height and the circle, you try to find the circumference. So you get pi times the diameter equals their circumference. And if you add the numbers up, it doesn't come out right. It says the thickness of it was a handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of the cup of flowers and lilies. So if it's 30 cubits round and 10 cubits in diameter, it doesn't make any sense. So maybe if there's a handbreadth on there, you can see these 2 different theories. It could either have the thickness on the inside, that's a handbreadth, or the thickness could be on the outside, which is a handbreadth. You have to add that to the circumference. The question is, where do you measure the circumference? Do you measure the top part, which is going to be smaller than the bottom part? If the top's right, do you measure the inside circumference or the outside circumference? If the bottom one's correct, do you measure the outside circumference or the one on the bottom of that? This glass is 3.75 inch diameter and 12 inches round here, but it's also 11.78 down here. So which one is it? Measure the top or you measure the bottom circumference? What would the diameter of this cup be? Where would you measure the circumference, the top or the bottom? What about this one here? What's the diameter of this cup? Where would you measure the circumference? The bottom portion or the top portion? As you go down the brim, it gets smaller and smaller. So where would you measure the circumference? What about this cup? You see on the top there, it's got this little area on the top. It's bigger than the bottom. Where would you measure the diameter of this cup? Don't you think they would notice that there was a large gap in the cup? They were missing 1.47 cubits, 30 inches. So that's one up right there. Here's the second one. It stood up 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking towards the west, and 3 looking towards the south, and 3 looking towards the east. The sea was about them, and all their hinder parts were inward. So you can see this giant brass thing that has a little handbreadth on top. And we're going to talk about how much water does it hold. So there was a handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, and flowers and lilies, and it contained 2,000 baths. But hold on. If you go to 2 Corinthians, it says the thickness of it was a handbreadth, and the brim of it the brim of the cup, the flowers and lilies, and it received and it held 3,000 baths. Well, here's another contradiction. In 1 Kings 7:26, it says Solomon's molten sea contained 2,000 baths. One bath is about 8 gallons. Yet in 2 Corinthians 4:5, it says it held 3,000 baths. So let's see if we can figure this out. 1 Kings 7:26. And it was a handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was broad like the brim of a cup, with flowers and lilies, and it contained 2,000 baths. Go to 2 Chronicles 4:5. And the thickness of it was a handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, and flowers and lilies, and it received and held 3,000 baths. So you look at those two and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But if you actually stop and think and read what it says, it makes perfect sense. 1 Kings. It said it held 3,000 baths. So the full volume you can get in there is 3,000 baths. But at 1 Kings it says it contained 2,000 baths. Well, it just wasn't full all the way. It holds 3,000, but there was only 2,000 in it. That makes perfect sense. Proverbs 30 says, every word of God is pure, and he has assured unto them that put their trust in him. And thou not into his words that he reprove thee, that he be found a liar. For 2 Timothy 2, study that show themselves approved to God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly divided the word of truth. But shun profane and vain blabbings, they only increase more ungodliness. Studying the Bible and being able to answer the supposed contradictions will cause you to come to realize two things. First one, when you slow down and actually read what it says, you slowly realize the Bible's true. And secondly, it might take you an hour later, and you'll say, oh wow, the Bible's true. And you actually stop and think about what's going on. You'll either take your time and read the Bible and say, wow, this book's amazing. Or maybe you'll go through it kind of fast and you'll go back and you'll go, wow, it just hit me where this contradiction was. The Bible's true. There's no contradiction to the Bible. 1 Kings 7:27. And he made 10 bases of brass, 4 cubits was the last length of one base, and 4 cubits was the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height thereof. And the work of the base was on the manner, and they had borders, and borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions and oxen and cherubs. And upon the ledges there were bases above, and beneath the lions and oxen were certain additions made of their work. And every base had 4 brazen wheels, and plates of brass, and the 4 corners thereof had undersetters. Under the lavers were undersetters molten, the side of every addition. So you can see this beautiful thing here. In the mouth of it were the chapters, and above was a cubit. But the mouth therefore was round about the work of the base, and a cubit and a half, and also the mouth of there was gravings with their borders 80 not round. And under the borders were 4 wheels and axe trees. And the wheels were joined on the base, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half cubit. And the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Their axe trees and their naves, and their fellones and their spokes were all molten. And there were 4 undersetters to the 4 corners of the base, and the undersetters were the very base itself. And on the top of the base there was a round compass a half cubit high, and on the top of the brass ledgers, therefore, and the borders therefore was about the same. From the plates of the ledges therefore, and on the borders therefore, he graved cherubims, lions, and palm trees according to the portions of each one, and additions round about. And after this manner he made 10 bases. All of them had 1 casting, 1 measure, and 1 size. And he made 10 lavers of brass, 1 laver containing 40 baths. Remember, a bath is 8 gallons. And every laver was 4 cubits, and every one of the 10 cubits 1 laver. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house, and 5 on the left side of the house. And he set the sea on the right side of the house, eastward, above against the south. And Hiram made the lavers, and the shovels, and the basins. So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he made the King Solomon for the house of the Lord. And 2 pillars of the 2 bowls of the chapters, on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the chapters which were above the top of the pillars. And 400 pomegranates at the 2 networks, even the rows of pomegranates for 1 network to cover the 2 bowls of the chapters that are upon the pillars. And 10 bases, and 10 lavers of bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots and the shovels and the basins, and all these vessels which Hiram made to the King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of bright brass. And in the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zoran. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because they were exceedingly many, neither of the weight of the brass found out. And Solomon made the vessels that pertained to the house of the Lord, upon an altar of gold, and a temple of gold, whereupon the showbread was, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side, before the oracle of the flowers and lamps and tongue of gold. And the bowls and the scuffers and the basins of the spoons, and the essentials of pure gold and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house of the most holy place, and the doors of the house to wit of the temple. And in all the work that King Solomon made in the house of the Lord. And Solomon brought the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels, that he put among the treasures of the house of the Lord. Well guys, that's the video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, you can always send me an email. You can comment below. I'm going to put a couple links on the screen here. The bottom right is going to be the 1 Kings Bible study. Top left is going to be the Exodus Bible study. And the bottom left is going to be a video that YouTube thinks you're going to like. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope I taught you guys something. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.